Captain Elias Ward stood inside the Grand Hall of the Galactic Council. Tall pillars reached the sky. The walls were made of smooth, glowing stone. Alien flags from across the galaxy hung above his head. Hundreds of alien leaders sat in silence, their many eyes watching the lone human. Elias was the first human ever invited to speak at the highest level of the galaxy. He had trained for this moment his entire life. He wore Earth's deep blue Envoy uniform with the golden star on his chest. His voice was calm, his face strong. He looked at the council and began to speak. "Leaders of the galaxy," Elias said, his voice echoing in the chamber. "Humanity comes in peace. We offer knowledge, trade, and friendship." Some aliens nodded, but others frowned. They didn't trust humans. Earth had grown powerful too fast. In just 100 years, humanity had built starships, colonies, and weapons that could match any other race. "We do not seek war," Elias continued. "We want to build with you, not fight against you." But in the shadows, some council members whispered. One alien, Lord Siren of the Zark Dominion, tapped his claws on the table. He had always feared humans. He believed they were too dangerous. To him, peace was a trick, just a way to grow stronger before attacking. Suddenly, a loud voice filled the hall. "Enough." It was Chancellor Vorel, the leader of the council. His voice was cold. His skin shimmered like metal. He stood tall and looked straight at Elias. "The council has decided," he said. "Humanity's growth is a threat. Your Envoy mission is a cover for future control. We cannot allow this." Elias blinked. "What do you mean?" The room grew darker. The large screen appeared behind the Chancellor. It showed images of human ships, colonies, and weapons. "You claim peace," Vorel said, "but you build like a race preparing for war." Elias raised his hand. "That is not true. We build to survive, not to attack." Vorel shook his head. "The decision is made. You are guilty of spreading fear, spying, and lying. As the voice of Earth, you carry its weight. Your punishment is death." The hall froze. Not a sound. Even the air felt still. Elias took a step back. "You can't be serious. This is a peace mission. I carry no weapon." But no one moved to help him. "Your presence is the weapon," Vorel replied. "Council guards, execute the human." Guards stepped forward. Their armor shone silver. One raised a beam weapon. Elias didn't run. He stood tall, looking at the stars painted on the ceiling. "My death will be your mistake," he said. "Earth will know. Earth will remember." A flash of light filled the hall. Then silence. The body of Captain Elias Ward fell to the floor, lifeless. Thousands of light years away, Earth watched in horror. The entire mission had been recorded. A secret satellite near the council chamber had sent the footage to Earth's command. World leaders, scientists, soldiers, all watched Elias speak with hope and die with honor. No one spoke. The president of Earth, Lian Zhao, stood up slowly. Her face was pale, her eyes wet. She looked at her generals. "Is the message confirmed?" "Yes, Mom," one replied. "It was not faked. It was real. He's gone." The president nodded. Then, with a quiet voice, she said, "Begin Protocol A." "Are you sure?" a general asked. She turned to him. Her voice was like ice. "They killed our envoy during a peace mission. They declared war. We will answer." Back at the Galactic Council, Vorel gave a proud speech. "The human threat has been stopped. There will be no war." But he didn't know that Earth had already gone silent. Every human outpost stopped sending messages. Every human ship turned off its lights. Even trade ships vanished from scanners. Vorel smiled. Perhaps they understand now. Peace through strength. But deep in Earth's hidden command base, cold machines woke from sleep. Red lights turned on. Silent missiles came online. A voice echoed through the underground halls. Annihilation protocol activated. And far out in the black of space, hidden in the shadow of Saturn's rings, A giant human warship opened its eyes. Its name was Judgment, and it had only one mission now: make them pay. The stars outside Earth's atmosphere were silent. Not a single transmission left the planet's orbit. Not a whisper. No ships, no signals. Just an eerie quiet that hung like a storm about to break. Inside Earth's command center, the mood was grim. President Lion Zhou stood in front of a holographic map of the galaxy. Her eyes were fixed on the blinking lights of her own fleet, frozen in place, and the slowly turning planet they orbited. The Earth was still. Too still. "We've cut all communications with the galaxy. No more trade, no more signals. Nothing goes in or out without our say," General Martin Crow reported. Zhou turned to face him. "And the satellites? They're gone. We've erased every trace of Earth's presence from Council sensors," Crow confirmed, his voice low. The president's gaze moved to the screens, which showed Earth's moon in high resolution. Beneath its surface, something had changed. Giant metallic doors slid open silently in the dark, revealing the hidden weapons platforms that had not been used in over a century. The machinery, dormant for so long, was now online. "Is everything in place?" Xiao asked, her voice colder than it had ever been. "Yes, ma'am. All systems are operational," Crow said, his fingers flying over the controls. "Project Vengeance is ready to launch." Zhao nodded once, sharply. "Good. It's time they learned who they were dealing with." Back on the Galactic Council's world, the death of Captain Elias Ward echoed across the galaxy, but there was no panic. No desperate communications from Earth, just an uneasy calm. The leaders of the Council sat in their high chambers, discussing the human problem in hushed tones. Lord Siren of the Zark Dominion spoke first, his eyes glinting with a cold hatred. "The human ambassador was a fool," he said, his voice venomous. "The message is clear. Earth will never be allowed to rise again." Vorel, Chancellor of the Council, sat still, his mind deep in thought. The humans, he realized, had been underestimated. He had expected them to submit, to retreat into silence, but Earth had not done so. It was too quiet, and quiet was dangerous. It was the calm before the storm. "They will come for us," Vorel finally said, his voice tinged with an uncommon fear. "And we will be unprepared." Zirin scowled. "We have done what needed to be done. The human envoy is dead. Their peace mission is over." Vorel stood up, his tall form casting a long shadow over the chamber. "You're wrong. What we've done, we've awoken something we cannot control." Back on Earth, the silence grew deeper. For days, no one spoke publicly about the death of Captain Elias Ward. The media was quiet, the public uncertain, the political leaders silent. But behind closed doors, the true plan was unfolding. President Zhao was seated in the war room, the lights dim. The world's top generals, scientists, and strategists surrounded her. A giant holographic screen glowed, showing the fleet at the farthest reaches of the solar system. Massive ships, black as night, drifted in formation like predators. "Activate Phase 1, Zhao ordered. The room hummed to life as technicians began pressing buttons. Systems that had been dormant for decades came online. The silence was broken by the low roar of machines starting. The fleet's weapons systems powered up. Massive warships, cloaked and invisible, began to move toward the edge of Earth's atmosphere. The Galactic Council continued their deliberations, but the weight of Earth's silence gnawed at them. They didn't know what the humans were doing. Were they planning an invasion? Were they gathering an army? No one knew for sure. But the fear was there, like a shadow that followed them, creeping into every corner of their minds. "We must take action," Lord Siren growled, his voice dripping with contempt. "If we don't strike first, we may never get the chance." Vorel, however, was not so quick to act. He knew the humans were capable of much more than they had shown. Elias Ward had spoken the truth in his final moments. Earth's response would be far greater than they could imagine. On Earth, Zhao stood in front of a map of the galaxy, the glow of the holographic screen casting a pale light on her face. Her eyes were sharp, cold. "We are no longer waiting for the galaxy to recognize us," she said softly. "We are going to make them remember who we are. We will show them that we are not to be underestimated." The warships, hidden under the moon's surface, began to move. Their engines hummed as they made their way toward Earth's orbit, ready to strike. "We will give them a lesson they will never forget," Zhao continued. "An enemy they will never be able to stop. Project Vengeance is not just about revenge. It's about showing them that Earth does not bow down." At the same time, the universe watched in confusion. No one knew what Earth was planning. No one knew what their silence meant. A lone scout ship from the Zark Dominion ventured close to the moon, trying to gather information. It came too close to Earth's hidden weapons base. The moment it crossed the boundary, a single shot rang out. A bright light flashed, and the scout ship was gone, disappeared into the void without a trace. A message crackled across the airwaves, but it was not a human message. It was a warning. "Stay away. Earth has awakened." The message sent a ripple of fear throughout the galaxy. It was no longer a question of whether humanity would retaliate. The question now was, how much destruction could Earth unleash in its rage? And deep in the shadows of Earth's moon, the warships prepared for their first move. The dark silence of space seemed endless. Earth was no longer just a pale blue dot. It had become a sleeping giant, its movements unseen by the galaxy. But beneath the surface of its moon, the heartbeat of a new war began to pulse with purpose. In the hidden bunkers deep beneath Antarctica, the last remnants of Earth's greatest secret began to awaken. Massive machines, forgotten by history, slowly powered up, their massive frames moving with a slow mechanical grace. Red lights flickered on, casting an eerie glow on the metallic walls. Deep inside the Earth's crust, Project Vengeance had been dormant for over 100 years, its purpose long buried in the depths of human history. Now its time had come. President Zhao stood in the command center, her face illuminated by the cold blue light of the control panels. Behind her, the vast holographic displays showed the entire Earth fleet in motion. Dozens of warships, each larger than any single alien vessel, began to move from the dark side of the moon. Stealth fields cloaked their movements, rendering them invisible to the sensors of even the most advanced alien races. "We've waited long enough," Zhao said, her voice steady but with a cold edge. "The Council may have believed they ended our Envoy's life with a single shot, but they've only ignited the fury of 1,000 suns." General Crow, standing by her side, nodded. "Project Vengeance is operational. All systems are online. We've updated the AI network, integrated every available resource into our ships. Earth's fleet is unlike anything they've ever seen." The new ships were not simply warships. They were armed with technologies so advanced that even the Council's finest minds would struggle to understand them. Stealth systems made them invisible to the best scanners. AI-driven tactics meant they could adapt, think, and strike in ways that no alien force could predict. "It's time to remind the galaxy that we do not back down," Zhao said, her eyes cold and determined. "Humanity will show them our strength. They will know we are not just survivors. We are conquerors when pushed too far." Far across the galaxy, the Council members were in panic. They had expected some form of retaliation from Earth, but not this. The complete absence of communication from Earth had set off alarms. Rumors of massive human warships moving in the shadows of their moon sent chills down the spines of the most seasoned alien leaders. Lord Siren, the Zark Dominion's representative, paced furiously in his chamber. He had always known Earth would be a problem. But now it seemed they were facing a force unlike anything they had imagined. "The humans must be preparing an invasion," he spat. "We must strike before they strike us." Chancellor Vorel, however, was not so quick to act. His mind raced as he analyzed the situation. He had studied humanity closely for years, and something about this situation felt different. The way the humans had remained silent after the execution of their envoy. It was unlike anything he had expected. "They aren't acting the way we thought they would," Vorel muttered. "This is not some petty rebellion. They've planned for this." He turned toward a massive screen showing the movement of Earth's fleet. It was now clear to him. Earth was not retreating or cowering. They were moving strategically, silently, and with precision. "It's like they've known exactly what we would do," Vorel said, more to himself than to anyone else in the room. "Their preparations are unnatural." Siren clenched his fists. "What do we do now? Do we wait for them to make the first move?" Vorel stared at the screen, his mind working furiously. "We don't wait, but we can't engage in open conflict yet. They want us to strike first, and if we do, we'll walk into their trap." Back on Earth, the decision was made. The fleet, now fully prepared and cloaked in darkness, moved toward the Galactic Center, where the Council's headquarters resided. Each ship was silent, invisible to any form of detection. They were the hunters now, and the galaxy would feel their wrath. Inside the command center, Zhao looked out at the galaxy, now just a field of stars on the display. Earth's fleet was ready to engage, and they had a clear goal: make the galaxy pay for the death of Elias Ward. "Activate the first wave," Zhao ordered. "We're not waiting for them to make a mistake. We will make them pay." The first wave of warships launched into the depths of space. They weren't just armed with missiles and conventional weapons. These ships were equipped with something far worse, a new form of weapon that was more devastating than anything the Council had seen. Using an experimental energy-based weapon, the ships fired without warning. The first target was a small scouting station on the edge of the Council's territory. The weapon was like nothing the Council had ever seen before. It didn't just destroy the station. It erased it from existence. The small scout ship, along with its entire fleet of defenders, vanished in an instant. No explosion, no debris, just gone. The message was clear. The Council's panic began to spread. Ships were moving in the darkness, and Earth's fleet had already shown its ability to wipe out entire stations without a single shot being fired. The Council's best defenses were no match for Earth's new technology. But even as the first wave of ships advanced, the Council tried to respond. Vorel issued a series of orders to his commanders, sending out fleets to intercept and challenge the human warships. But as they began their approach, they couldn't detect any human ships on their radar. There were no signals, no ships to lock onto. "Where are they?" Siren asked, his voice filled with frustration. "They were here just a moment ago." The truth was, Earth had already thought of this. Their ships were too fast, too stealthy. Their eye was already calculating the best strike patterns before the Council even knew where to look. Humanity had learned from their mistakes, and this time, they would not be caught off guard. As the human fleet advanced deeper into Council space, a voice rang out across the control room of the Council's flagship. "We've lost contact with our front lines," the officer reported. "Where are the humans?" another asked. And then, as the last of the human ships emerged from the shadows, it became painfully clear. Earth was no longer just a planet to be feared. It was a force of nature, unstoppable and relentless. And it was coming for the Galactic Council. The galaxy had never known a force like this. Earth's fleet, invisible and swift, continued its silent march through the galaxy, a growing shadow that haunted the hearts of every council member. What began as a response to a single death was becoming something far greater, a reckoning that no one could ignore. President Zhou stood at the heart of Earth's command center, watching the status updates on the vast display screen. The system was humming with activity. Every human warship was now engaged in their calculated assault. Yet, for all their power, Zhao remained calm. There was no fear in her eyes, only determination. "Phase 2 is a go," she said, her voice unwavering. A team of generals and strategists, gathered in the dimly lit room, nodded. The war was no longer about a single strike. It had grown into an all-out campaign to show the galaxy what humanity was truly capable of. Intensify the deployment of the advanced strike teams, General Crow added. We've reached Council space. Let's make sure they understand that retaliation will cost them everything. Zhou's gaze shifted toward the holographic map of the galaxy. Earth's fleet was now stationed within striking distance of several key Council strongholds. First, they had taken out the small defensive outposts, shattering the illusion of safety. Now their eyes were set on bigger prey. Their fleet is gathering. A technician reported from one of the side terminals, his voice tight with anxiety. We're being tracked. Zhou's face remained impassive. It doesn't matter. They've already seen what we're capable of. Now we take the fight to their front door. In the heart of Council space, Vorel paced nervously in the command center of the galactic flagship, his alien skin shimmering with an almost nervous energy. He had spent his life in control of the galaxy, navigating endless conflicts and political machinations, but nothing had prepared him for Earth's sudden rise. What do we know about their fleet? He demanded, turning to his advisors. Where are they? Every time we think we have them cornered, they vanish, a frustrated officer reported. Their ships are cloaked. The human technology. It's unlike anything we've encountered. Lord Siren, the Zark Dominion leader, sat silently in his chair. His mind raced. He had been the loudest in calling for the execution of Elias Ward, believing that the human race would break after losing their envoy. But now, with each passing day, it was clear that he had made a grave mistake. They're hunting us, Siren muttered, staring at the screen that showed Earth's fleet systematically picking off smaller targets one by one. And we have nothing that can stop them. Vorel clenched his fists, the tension evident in his posture. The humans have every advantage. We can't rely on our old tactics. We need to strike at the heart of their fleet. One of the officers spoke up. We've tried everything. Our fleets have been ambushed, destroyed. The human ships, they're faster. We can't match them. Vorel's gaze darkened. Then we will take a different approach. If we cannot stop them in space, we'll bring the war to their doorstep. Far beyond the Council chambers, deep within Earth's dark moon base, the plan was set in motion. Earth's response was not just about military might. It was about disrupting the very foundations of the Council's power. Hidden beneath the surface of their moon was the ultimate weapon, the neutron disruptor. This weapon was capable of rendering entire fleets useless in an instant. It was a technology so advanced that even the Council could not fathom its power. And it was Earth's trump card. Zhou's orders were clear. The neutron disruptor would be fired from the farthest point of the moon's surface, deep into Council space. The goal wasn't to destroy their ships. It was to cripple their ability to fight back, to leave them scrambling in the dark, unable to launch a coordinated counteroffensive. With the weapon primed and ready, Zhou turned to her final order. Once this is done, we leave no one behind. Every corner of the galaxy will know that humanity has returned, and we will not be ignored. The neutron disruptor, hidden beneath the thick lunar crust, hummed to life. Its energy surged, sending waves of power through the hidden tunnels that stretched beneath Earth's moon. For the first time in centuries, Earth's secret weapon was unleashed. In an instant, the disruptor's massive energy pulse shot out, creating a shockwave that spread across the galaxy. Hundreds of miles away, it collided with Council space. The results were immediate. The lights on Council warships flickered and died. Entire fleets, once proud and unstoppable, turned to dust. Systems that had been the heart of the Council's power fell silent, their once impenetrable shields no longer working. Vorel's face went pale as he watched the monitors. The fleet that had once been their pride was now nothing more than a collection of dead, floating husks. What have they done? Vorel whispered in disbelief. We underestimated them, Siren said bitterly. And now we're paying the price. Back on Earth, the aftermath of the neutron disruptor was clear. The galaxy was no longer safe for the Council. Every fleet they had sent into space was now useless. There was no warning, no time to fight back. Earth's strike had been swift, calculated, and brutal. Zhao stood in the control room, watching the outcome unfold. Her face was stoic, but there was a flicker of satisfaction in her eyes. The Council, once so arrogant in their power, was broken. The message had been sent. Humanity would never be a subject of the galaxy. They would not be overlooked. The death of one man had sparked a war, but in the end, humanity had shown the galaxy what it truly meant to stand against them, and the galaxy would never forget. The silence in the control room was almost suffocating as the last of the galactic fleet's communications went dark. For a moment, the universe seemed to hold its breath. Then, as if by some unseen force, the quiet was shattered by a single command, an order that sent ripples through the entire human fleet. Prepare the final strike. President Zhou stood tall before the massive holographic map that now displayed the crippled remnants of the Galactic Council's fleets. The Council had underestimated them. And now, Earth's fury was almost at its peak. The silence of space was broken only by the hum of Earth's most advanced warships, poised and waiting for the final orders. General Crow stepped forward, his voice steady but filled with determination. Phase 3 begins now. The Council no longer has the power to stop us. We've crippled their forces, but the heart of their empire remains. Zhao's gaze narrowed. She knew what needed to be done. There could be no turning back. The neutron disruptor had already delivered a devastating blow to their infrastructure, but Earth's warships were now poised to move deeper into Council territory, right to their core, the very heart of their government. Launch the final fleet, Zhao ordered. We strike now. The fleet's engines roared to life. The massive ships, their cloaking systems activated, moved in perfect synchrony. The human ships, still invisible and silent, continued to march toward their target. Every action had been meticulously planned, every strike calculated. They were now a force unlike any other in the galaxy, swift, relentless, and unstoppable. On the Council flagship, panic had begun to give way to desperation. Vorel, still reeling from the destruction of his fleets, was now consumed with trying to make sense of the chaos. Communications were dead. Fleet commanders had vanished into silence. Their once dominant forces were reduced to drifting wrecks in space. We need to strike back, Vorel said sharply, his voice quivering with frustration. We can't sit here and wait for them to come to us. Lord Siren, though silent for a moment, spoke up with grim resolve. They've already destroyed us. We don't have the fleet we once had. It's too late for direct action. But we cannot surrender, Vorel retorted. We must show them that the galaxy does not bend to their will. The tension in the command room was palpable. Every council member knew that surrender would mean the end of their reign, and yet the prospect of facing humanity's wrath was too terrifying to ignore. We can't fight them directly, Vorel muttered, pacing. But we can try something else. Activate the last resort. We must protect the council at any cost. It was a desperate plan. The final, most dangerous weapon that the Council had ever developed, the entropy bomb, capable of ripping apart entire sectors of space. If it detonated, it would alter the very fabric of space-time, destroying everything in its path. But it would also annihilate any chance of peaceful negotiations, of any future coexistence between the Council and humanity. We activate it, Vorel said, his eyes burning with a mixture of defiance and fear. We'll set a trap. Back on Earth's command center, Zhao's calm demeanor didn't falter as the fleets advanced into the heart of Council territory. The final push was underway, and Earth's warships were moving like shadows, silent and deadly. Each ship was now armed with the most devastating weapons Earth had ever created. Energy cannons capable of obliterating entire planets, stealth fields that made them invisible to every sensor, and drones that could infiltrate Council strongholds without being detected. Yet, Zhu knew that the greatest threat wasn't the enemy ships. They had already been crippled. It was the Council's final weapon, the entropy bomb, that kept her up at night. She had been briefed about it by the best minds Earth had. It was a weapon of unimaginable power, one that could erase everything in its path. "We can't afford to be slow," Zhao said, standing up and moving to the console. "The Council will fight to the bitter end. We need to strike before they even think of activating that bomb." General Crow stepped in, analyzing the data coming in. "We've detected a strong energy surge in their capital. They're getting ready to make their move." Zhao's hand clenched into a fist. The time to strike was now. Inside the Council's last stronghold, the entropy bomb was ready. Deep within the heart of their flagship, the weapon sat dormant, a dark reminder of the Council's ultimate authority. Vorel stood before it, watching as the countdown began. "It's activated," one of the officers reported, his voice trembling. "If the humans come any closer, we'll unleash it." Vorel turned to face his council. "We've reached the endgame. This is the only card we have left. Let them come. Let them see what happens when they push us too far." The human fleet advanced, each ship moving closer to the Council's capital, the final target. Earth's forces were poised, each captain and crew member ready for the decisive strike. But even as they moved forward, Zhao's thoughts remained on the bomb, on the reality that if they didn't act quickly, the consequences would be catastrophic. Then, a signal came through. A simple alert, flashing red across the screen. "Warning. Entropy bomb detected." The countdown was already in motion. They had no time to lose. "Take us in," Zhao commanded. "Full speed ahead. We destroy the bomb before it activates." Earth's fleet made its final charge, closing in on the Council's capital. The proximity alarms blared, signaling that they had reached the heart of enemy space. But the Council's defenses were still active, and the bomb had already begun its countdown. As the human ships neared, they fired a barrage of laser blasts, taking out any remaining defense systems in their way. The air was thick with tension as Earth's warships made their final approach toward the Council flagship. The bomb was almost ready to detonate. "Get ready," General Crow barked over the comms. "We have to disable that bomb before they fire it. We can't let them destroy everything." But as the final approach was made, something unexpected happened. The Council flagship, seemingly out of desperation, launched a massive energy pulse directly at Earth's fleet, hoping to delay their advance. The pulse shot through space, shimmering like a wave of destruction, hitting several of Earth's warships and knocking them off course. For a moment, it seemed as though the humans might fail, that the Council might have one last chance to escape. But Earth's ships, coordinated and relentless, regrouped in a heartbeat. "Keep pushing," Zhao said, her voice firm. The final strike was made, and within moments, Earth's warships surrounded the flagship. The bomb's countdown, mere seconds from completion, was cut off. The human fleet had won. The cold vacuum of space felt even more oppressive now, as the remnants of the Council's capital lay in ruins. The once proud heart of galactic power was now nothing more than a shattered husk. The energy pulses from Earth's final strike had obliterated the Council flagship, and with it, the last hope for the Council's survival. The galaxy was watching, and the message was unmistakable. Humanity had come, and they would not be silenced. President Zhao stood at the command center of Earth's fleet, her eyes focused on the flashing screens. Around her, the noise of victory was evident. Cheers from the crew, messages of support from Earth, and the hum of the ship's engines as they began to power down after the final assault. Yet, amid all the noise, Zhao's thoughts were elsewhere. There was still work to be done. The battle was over, but the war was far from won. General Crow approached her, his face a mixture of exhaustion and relief. "It's over, Madam President. We've done it. The Council is finished." Zhao nodded, but her eyes remained fixed on the galaxy map. "It's not over until we ensure the Council cannot come back from this. The galaxy must understand that Earth is not just a player, it's the new power." "I understand," Crow said, his voice softer now. The Council's leadership is gone. Their fleet's broken. What's next? Zhao exhaled slowly, her fingers tracing the outline of the galaxy's regions. Now we ensure that the galaxy knows it. We can't just dismantle their forces. We need to send a message so clear that no one dares to challenge Earth again. In the quiet corners of the galaxy, far from Earth's reach, a few surviving council members had managed to regroup. They had retreated to their last stronghold, hidden deep within a sector that had long been considered uncharted space. These remnants of the once great empire were nothing more than fugitives now, scrambling to save what little they could. But they had not given up entirely. Desperation had driven them into secrecy, into plotting a return. A slow, painful process, but one they believed could still be done. Vorel, who had narrowly survived the destruction of the Council flagship, stood in the shadow of their new headquarters, surrounded by a handful of loyalists. His once commanding presence now seemed diminished, but his mind still burned with the desire for revenge. "We may have lost everything," Vorel began, his voice rough with emotion. "But the galaxy is vast. Earth may have dealt us a crushing blow, but they have not wiped us out. We will rebuild, and when we are strong again, we will take back what was stolen from us." A silence filled the room. The other council members exchanged wary glances, unsure whether they were ready to face another war. They had seen Earth's power firsthand. They had seen the impossible. And yet, the idea of surrender was unthinkable. "We are not finished," Vorel continued, his voice more forceful now. "We will fight, even if it takes centuries. And we will make sure that humanity knows fear before we are done." Meanwhile, back on Earth, the entire planet had watched in awe as the human fleet had made its final push and crushed the Council's forces. News outlets were flooded with coverage. The streets were alive with celebrations, and for the first time in a long while, humanity's sense of unity had never been stronger. But even in the midst of triumph, there was an undercurrent of uncertainty. Zhao stood at the podium in the grand hall of Earth's capital, addressing the world. The applause and cheers of the people had died down, leaving only the sound of her steady voice. "The war is over," she began, her gaze steady and resolute. "We have shown the galaxy what happens when you underestimate humanity. We have proven that we will not be silenced. But this is not a time for recklessness. The galaxy is vast, and there are others out there who will see our victory as a challenge. We must remain vigilant. We must ensure that Earth's power is never questioned again." Her words echoed through the minds of all who heard them. Earth had made its mark, but the next chapter was yet to be written. There were new enemies, new threats, and new allies to consider. June knew that the work ahead would be harder than the war itself. But she also knew that humanity had crossed a threshold. No longer would they hide in the shadows. No longer would they be subjugated by the whims of others. In the aftermath of the war, the remnants of the Galactic Council had begun to rebuild. They were fractured, with no unified leadership and no real strength to speak of. But their resolve was unbroken. They had learned from their mistakes. Their plans were already being set into motion. The rise of a new faction, hidden away from Earth's watchful eyes, was already underway. The leaders of the remaining council factions met in secret, plotting their resurgence. They had learned that Earth's strength came from unity, something the council had never truly understood. They would need more than just ships and weapons. They would need allies, resources, and most of all, time. Their leader, Vorel, stood before them, his eyes dark with determination. "We have lost this battle, but the war is not over. We will rise again. The galaxy will see our return, and humanity will learn to fear us." The room fell silent. The future of the galaxy was uncertain, but one thing was clear. The story between Earth and the remnants of the Council was far from finished. In the darkness of space, a new struggle was brewing, one that would shape the fate of not just Earth, but the entire galaxy. On Earth, President Zhao stood once more before the galaxy map, the once proud symbol of the Council, now dark and lifeless. Her gaze moved across the expanse of the stars, as if weighing the balance of power in the universe. They had won the war, but the true battle for dominance had only just begun. "Prepare for the next phase," she said, her voice low and commanding. "The galaxy is ours to shape, and we will make sure it never forgets the name of Earth." With her final words, the command center buzzed to life again. Earth had taken its first step into a new era, a period where no one would dare challenge humanity's place in the stars. But as Zhu knew, power was never secure. It had to be maintained. The path ahead would not be easy, but Earth would continue to rise, to dominate, and to prove that humanity was a force to be reckoned with. The stars outside Earth's command center seemed impossibly distant, their cold light flickering like distant memories. But inside, there was no doubt. Humanity had made its mark on the galaxy. Yet as President Zhou gazed out at the stars, she knew that the real test of Earth's strength was only beginning. The remnants of the Galactic Council, though fractured, were far from defeated. The message had been sent. Humanity was a force to be reckoned with. But now, it was time to show that Earth could sustain this power. The war had ended, but there was no peace. The galaxy's fragile balance had been shattered, and factions were beginning to emerge. Some had pledged allegiance to Earth, eager to be a part of its growing empire. Others, however, sought to challenge humanity's newfound dominance. The ripple effects of the conflict were already spreading, and Zhao could feel the weight of the future on her shoulders. In the dark reaches of space, the remaining factions of the Galactic Council were now desperately seeking allies. Their survival depended on rebuilding not just their fleets, but their influence. Vorel, whose ambition had never faltered, knew that Earth had only delayed the inevitable. The human fleet might have crushed them for now, but the Council's ideals could never be truly eradicated. They had a network of supporters spread across the galaxy, and it was only a matter of time before they regrouped. "We cannot afford to wait any longer," Vorel said, his voice heavy with determination. "We need to rebuild our fleets, expand our influence, and once again challenge Earth's power." A council of survivors, including some of the most skilled tacticians from the fallen empire, gathered in the darkened room. Their eyes burned with the desire to exact revenge, to reclaim their lost glory. They had lost everything once, but the notion of returning to the shadows was unthinkable. "We need new technology," one of them said. "Earth's weapons are far beyond anything we've encountered before. We will never challenge them with old methods." Vorel's lips twisted into a slight smile. "I have already made arrangements. The old ways are gone, yes, but what if we use their own advancements against them? We will infiltrate their systems, strike where they are weakest, and grow from within." The murmurs in the room were filled with anticipation. There was a dangerous glint in Vorel's eyes now. He wasn't just plotting revenge. He was envisioning a new order, one where the Council could rise from the ashes, stronger and more cunning than ever before. "We will take the fight to Earth. But this time, we'll do it quietly, methodically. The galaxy will not see us coming." Back on Earth, Zhao was aware of the increasing tension in the galaxy. Her advisors had warned her that the Council was far from done. Despite their massive losses, they were regrouping. The idea that the war might not be over for good haunted her as she reviewed intelligence reports. "President, the Council's remnants are not idle," General Crow said, his tone grave. "We have intercepted encrypted messages indicating that they're attempting to secure alliances with several neutral factions. They may be planning a resurgence." Zhao stared at the holographic display in front of her, showing the shifting alliances in the galaxy. The Council's power had fractured, but their reach had not. A network of smaller factions, some of them previously neutral, were now starting to show interest in the Council's ideals. Zhou's thoughts raced. The Council's philosophy of dominance, of galactic unity under their rule, still held sway in many sectors of space. "We cannot allow this to continue," Zhao said, her voice firm. "Humanity will not stand by and wait for the Council to rebuild. We need to assert our dominance now, before they have a chance to grow strong again. Crow nodded. We've been preparing for this. Earth's fleet has grown, and we've begun training specialized forces to infiltrate and neutralize Council remnants. But we need more. Zhao's mind raced. Earth needed to maintain control over the galaxy. It wasn't just about power. It was about survival. If the Council regrouped, they could launch another campaign that might tear everything Earth had fought for apart. Deploy the Vanguard fleet. Use the new weapon systems we've developed. We will end this once and for all. In the neutral zones of space, many independent worlds were beginning to see the potential dangers of Earth's rise. Some began to form tentative alliances with the Council's remnants, seeing it as a way to safeguard their future against what they viewed as Earth's growing imperialism. These new coalitions were small, but they had the resources and manpower to wage a war, one that would stretch across the galaxy if necessary. One such faction, the Xanthi, had long been considered neutral, but their leaders now found themselves debating whether to join the emerging resistance. Their people had always remained apart from the galaxy's conflicts, but the changing tides were impossible to ignore. We cannot afford to be passive anymore, Xanthi's leader, Yara, said to her council. Earth has shown that they are a power unlike any we've encountered. The council may be broken, but their ideology is not. We must stand with them now, before they fall entirely. The room was filled with murmurs of agreement. The Xanthi knew they were outmatched by Earth's fleets, but they also understood that the balance of power had shifted irrevocably. If they didn't act quickly, they would be at the mercy of Earth's demands. Zhao's thoughts turned back to Earth, to the delicate balance she had to maintain. A new faction had begun to emerge, and while many saw them as weak, she knew that in numbers, even the smallest group could prove dangerous. She couldn't afford to ignore them, but neither could she allow them to challenge Earth's leadership. We will strike first, Zhao said. The Vanguard fleet will not wait. We'll send a clear message to any faction considering alliances with the Council. Earth's power is unchallenged.